If someone walked into your village wearing torn clothes, carrying firewood on their head and dust on their feet, would you see a nobody? Or would you wonder if their story had not yet been told? In one African kingdom, an entire village laughed at a poor orphan every single day. They called him useless. They called him cursed. But the day the king arrived searching for a child lost many years before, those same voices fell silent because the boy they mocked carried a secret that even he didn't know. And by the end of this story, you understand why you should never judge a person's future by the clothes they wear. Long ago, in the quiet village of Umudara, lived a gentle boy named Ekene. He owned no farmland, no livestock, no family name that earned him respect. His only treasure had been an elderly widow named Chisom, the woman who found him as a baby and raised him with love instead of riches. When sickness finally overcame her, the tiny mud hut grew painfully quiet. Rain tapped softly on the roof as Ken held her frail hands. With trembling fingers, Chisom untied an old bronze bracelet wrapped in a faded cloth. She fastened it around Eken's wrist. Her voice was weak. My son, no matter what happens, never remove this bracelet. One day, the truth will find you. Before Eken could ask what she meant, her hand slowly slipped from his. The room fell silent. That night, Ekene buried the only mother he had ever known. From that day forward, he survived alone. Every morning before sunrise, he gathered firewood in the forest. He carried water for elderly villagers. He worked in other people's farms for scraps of food. Yet, no matter how hard he worked, respect never followed him. One afternoon, as Eken balanced a clay pot of water on his head, Obiora, the chief's proud son, stepped into his path. With a cruel smile, he struck the pot. It shattered against the ground. Water disappeared into the dry earth. The children burst into laughter. Look at him! Even his water refuses to stay with a beggar. Aiken stared at the broken pieces. That clay pot had taken him 3 weeks of work to buy. His eyes filled with tears, but instead of arguing, he quietly knelt and gathered every broken piece with his bare hands. An old woman watching from her doorway whispered, a humble heart grows higher than a proud one, but nobody listened. Days later, as Ekene returned from the forest carrying heavy firewood beneath the scorching sun, he noticed an old traveler collapse beside the dusty road. Many villagers walked past without stopping. Some feared the stranger, others simply didn't care. Although Ekene himself was exhausted and hungry, he hurried over. He placed his bundle on the ground. He poured the last of his drinking water into the old man's hands. Then he tore a piece of his only cloth to wipe the stranger's bleeding forehead. The traveler looked into the boy's eyes. My child, you have almost nothing. Why would you give your last water to someone you've never met? Ekene smiled gently. My mother Chisom always said, the poorest person is not the one without money. It is the one without kindness. The old man's eyes lingered on the bronze bracelet around Eken's wrist, but he said nothing. He simply thanked the boy and continued his journey. 3 days later, royal drums echoed across the kingdom. Boom, boom, boom. Every villager was ordered to gather before the palace immediately. Whispers spread through the crowd. Had war begun? Had someone betrayed the king? No one knew. The palace courtyard filled with hundreds of villagers. Even Obiora stood proudly beside his father. The king slowly stepped forward. His face carried years of sorrow. My people, many years ago, enemies attacked this kingdom. In the chaos, My infant grandson disappeared. We searched rivers, forests, and villages, but we never found him. A heavy silence covered the crowd. The king lifted an ancient bronze bracelet. My grandson wore another bracelet exactly like this. If anyone has ever seen its pair, please step forward. Nobody moved. Then the old traveler slowly walked from behind the king. Gasps swept through the crowd. He removed his dusty cloak. It was the king's most trusted royal adviser. He raised his hand. I have seen it. Every eye followed his finger. It pointed directly at Ekene. The crowd erupted. Impossible! That poor boy. The king walked slowly toward Ekene. His voice trembled. My child, may I see your wrist? With shaking hands, Ekene rolled back his sleeve. The courtyard became silent. The bracelets matched perfectly. The king's knees almost gave way. Tears streamed freely down his face. Years ago, a wounded royal guard had escaped with the infant prince during the attack. Knowing he would not survive, he entrusted the child to the kindest woman he could find. That woman was Chisom. She raised the prince as her own son, never asking for reward, never revealing the secret. The villagers lowered their heads in shame. Obiora could not even look at Ekene. Every cruel word, every laugh, every insult returned to haunt them. The king embraced Ekene tightly. My grandson, I have searched for you my entire life. Everyone waited to see what Ekene would do. Would he demand punishment? Would he seek revenge? Instead, he turned toward the villagers. His voice was calm. I forgive you. My mother's greatest gift was not this bracelet. It was teaching me that kindness is stronger than bitterness. If I cannot forgive, then I have learnt nothing from her. Many people began to cry. Before leaving for the palace, Ekene made one request. He asked the king to build a school, a well, and a home for orphan children in Umudara, so no child will ever believe poverty makes them worthless. The king smiled proudly. It shall be done. Years later, people remembered Ekene not because he became a prince, but because he remained the humble boy who chose compassion over revenge. And from that day on, whenever a child in torn clothes walked through Umudara, no one laughed anymore, because they had learned that greatness often hides behind the faces the world is too proud to notice. Never judge someone's future by their present struggles. A kind heart is worth more than fine clothes, and today's forgotten child may become tomorrow's greatest leader. Subscribe to this channel if you love African folktales, stories like this. Share for people that like to see this. I'll see you in my next video.